TFA Fam. What is going on? Thank you guys for joining us for another TFA show. I am Cody Kutzer, a.k.a. El Coderino, a.k.a. Johnny Hedgelife, joined as always with my guy, my PIC, the CEO of TFA, you might say, and that is Sir Kevin Steele. Tonight we're taking an early look at some breakouts for 2021, starting to switch up the content a little bit as we start to get closer to the draft, which means we're getting closer to redraft season. Going to start throwing some more of that stuff at you guys. So, going to kick things off there, man. Kev, how you doing? And then we'll jump into it. What's up? What's happening?
Doing well. We're almost to NFL draft. Finally. Oh, we can stop the hypotheticals, the BMI, all the other bullshit that's going on right now, all the hype. So finally almost here. And then we got a lot more stuff to break down.
Yes. I'm excited to have something new to talk about, like you said, like actual fits, landing spots, draft capital. In case you guys have not heard, we are going live again this year. I know there's going to be a lot more competition this year than there was last year. It seems like everybody is doing a draft show, but we're going to be going live for the whole round one and day two. We will be live for the entirety of day two as well. So make sure you carve out some time to check us out here. Hit us with that subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. Give us that like, drop a comment, help us out. We really do appreciate it. We hit that 1,000 sub plateau, and we're just going to keep climbing, just keep grinding it out. So, like I said, talking early breakouts. Kev, I believe you're first guy. I'm excited to hear more about this because he does have a 1,300-yard scrimmage. Yeah, 1,300 yards from scrimmage under his belt already. And you're calling for the breakout. So talk to us about your first guy here and why you're calling him a breakout for 2021.
Yeah, let's talk about Miles motherfucking Sanders, right? I know a lot of people are soured on Miles Sanders and, you're not going to get me to fall for this again. But all being told, Miles Sanders didn't have a terrible year last year. He just didn't hit expectation, which will kind of be the theme of the first two guys I talk about. But Miles Sanders, he played in 12 games last year. He averaged about 14 carries per game, 4 targets per game. Really solid for any running back that you might own. He had a 52 total targets, 871 rushing yards, 197 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, only averaged about 14 fantasy points per game, which is about 18th. But there was some really good things to look at as well. He was 7th in routes run, which is one very good indicator for a running back. 62.9% route participation, 5.6 yards per touch, which was 8th. He was 19th in evaded tackles, 14th in yards created, but 1.67 yards created per touch, which was 10th. And he was 8th in avoided tackles per attempt. But if you look at the season, I mean, he wasn't terrible. I mean, he was RB17 through weeks 1 through 5, but then he was RB14 from weeks 10 through 16. And over that span, he was 8th in yards created per touch, 8th in avoided tackles per attempt, and 8th in fantasy points per touch. So he really started to take off a little bit in the second half. He had 4 RB1 weeks and 3 RB2 weeks. So in 12 weeks, not terrible. But a lot of people are not valuing him right now. You look in early best balls and stuff like that. He's going like RB18, RB19 around third, late third, early fourth round. And that is a terrific value for somebody like him. And I think that with Jalen Hurts for a full season, getting this offensive line back, I think will be huge. And I think they will definitely add another playmaker in this offense. I think will really open things up for Miles Sanders. So I absolutely love Miles Sanders this year. And if he's going to be valued at RB 17, 18, that is tremendous value for him. And I think that he can finally break out in this offense with Jalen Hurts, because I think this offense takes a giant step forward this year from what they were last year.
Yeah, just by having everybody healthy, I think will be a huge boost for them. I just pulled up Best Ball 10's ADP, and over the last 2 weeks, Sanders is sitting at RB17 and has an ADP of 28.88. So you're talking about getting him in the beginning of the third round, which is really nice value. I'm going to stick with the Eagles here. What could go wrong with doubling down on the Eagles offense after the dumpster fire they had last year. But I'm going back to the well. This is somebody that we talked about last year. I am all aboard the Reagor train, Jalen Reagor. I never left I've been sitting in the station the whole time. They tried to pull me out. They tried to take my ticket. I said, no, sir, I'm holding on strong. For this is like you were mentioning already with the Eagles. This is someone who that we're expecting that they add another playmaker to the offense. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing for Reagor at all. I know there's been talk about some, Jalen Waddle. I think they kind of, I think they would eat into each other a little bit since they're, somewhat similar kind of players. But like I said, I'm still going to sit here and pound the table for him. I mean, as of right now, he is their wide receiver 1. In best ball drafts, you're looking at getting him in the middle of the 10th round. So even if they add somebody, it's not like his ADP is going to go up. So you're still looking at getting this guy super late. He's going to be a huge value in your drafts. I know last year was disappointing for him. He had the shoulder injury during training camp, tracking down someone, an interception during one of their practices in training camp. And then he had thumb injury in the middle of the season and missed games. Then you're talking about even before that, all the COVID stuff that was going on. So it was just a really weird year for a lot of these rookies. We're going to be talking about a lot of year 2 guys here. But just to give you a reminder of, part of the reason why we were so high on him, you're looking at a guy who had a 74th percentile speed score, 98th percentile burst score, 72nd percentile college dominator, and he had a 96th percentile breakout age. Their new coach, Nick Sirianni, has talked about, wanting to put an emphasis on getting the ball in their playmakers' hands in space, and that is right up Jalen Reagor's alley. So all aboard that Reagor train. Choo-choo. Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have written him off, right? I mean, and think that he's a bum. Like, I don't think he's going to be the alpha wide receiver that we thought where we were hoping he was going to be, but I still think that he could definitely be a solid wide receiver too for them. All signs point to them drafting somebody like Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle. Well, I guess not Jamar Chase now with where they're picking, but I definitely think that you could probably look at Jalen Waddle or even Devontae Smith for somebody that they look to take early in the with the first round pick.
Yep, absolutely. And like I said, I don't like. There are few true alpha, legit wide receiver ones that are left. So I think as we're talking about him, like maybe not being that true alpha, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like that defense still isn't great, so there's going to be plenty of volume to go around for Reagor. So who's numero dos on your list?
Yeah, for me it's one Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another guy that people were overhyping last year, right? Everybody, I mean, he went last year like 106, 107 in fantasy drafts because of the Chiefs offense. And as we know, that was kind of a mistake. I mean, people talk about him though like he was a complete and utter failure last year, and it just really wasn't the case. He just didn't meet expectation. Like he didn't meet that RB1 status that we were looking for. People thought he was going to do, and that's not really his fucking fault in my opinion. Like that's just us overhyping the player. But he still wasn't terrible. I mean, as a rookie, he still had 1,100 total yards in 13 games, 66% opportunity share, 11% of the target share in that offense, 181 attempts, 803 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, 36 receptions, 297 receiving yards. He was 18th in routes run, 13.5 fantasy points per game, 304 yards created, which was 18th, and then 48 evaded tackles, which was 17th, 7th in yards per reception, and 0.75 fantasy points per touch, which was 91st. So overall, like it wasn't a terrible year for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like I know people are down on him as well. Like he's going like RB15, RB16, and right now in best ball, and I don't think it's going to go up that much because of all the other running backs here. I think people feel much better about Cam Akers. They feel much better about even guy like J.K. Dobbins and, the other rookie running backs, DeAndre Swift, than they do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think that's a big mistake. Listen, year 2 in this offense, things that we have to remember is, one, these guys didn't get a training camp. These guys didn't get not a training camp, but a mini camp. They didn't get all this opportunities that most players do come in and really learn this playbook. Like they jumped in, they didn't get preseason, they had training camp, and then boom, they jumped into the season. And so I still think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, for everything that he is, I think that he can be a tremendous value moving forward. And I think now he's going to become, his value is going to be corrected, and you're going to be able to get him in late second, early third round of fantasy drafts. And I think that's tremendous value. Again, I think he has RB1 upside. Right now, they have no other running backs. They did not add anybody through free agency. They have Darrell Williams. They cut Damian Williams. And so it's kind of his offense right now. And I think this offense takes a big step forward. We'll see what they do in the draft. They really retooled this entire offensive line, only really returning one or two of these guys. I mean, you're talking about they went out and added Joe Thuney. They added, they're still looking for their left tackle. They're probably going to have Lucas Niang in either right tackle or left tackle. There's been talk about the possibility of bringing back Eric Fisher or Mitchell Schwartz if they show more the ability to be healthy by the time training camp comes around. But overall, like, he's going to get a large workload. He's going to see a lot of targets. I think you can see 70 targets this year for him this year. So I like him, as a post-hype sleeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's actually coming in right behind Sanders in Best Ball 10's ADP. Like I said, over the past 2 weeks, he's RB 18 and just going one spot behind Miles. Has 29.5 ADP, and Miles was at 28.8. So that ADP is much more palatable than, like you were talking about, the end of the first that he was getting, he first round draft capital to the Chiefs. Then Damian Williams opts out, and all of a sudden he goes from a third round pick all the way up to the first. And that was those were lofty expectations for him to meet in the first place. But I love that mid third round ADP for Clyde. And if that's where he stays, I will be targeting him in the third round in every single draft that I'm in. Someone else I'm going to be targeting, another year two player. Like I said, we're going to be talking about a bunch of these guys. We should have just made this a year two breakout show. But I'm going with Denzel Mims, wide receiver out of New York. I think there was a slight damper on the Mims mobile that was brought in with adding Corey Davis, but I don't think he's going to be playing second fiddle. But obviously, if Davis wouldn't have been added to the offense, you're looking at a lot more volume for him. But like I said, this isn't going to be a Davis is the clear one, and Mims is going to be the clear two. I think this is more of like a 1A, 1B situation, and something Mims brings to the table that they do not have in New York right now is someone, that explosive home run threat kind of player. You're looking at Jamison Crowder, who knows if he's going to be on the roster come September. And then, like I said, with Corey Davis, if for those who forgot, this dude, Denzel Mims, ran a sub 4.440 at 6'3", 207 last year at the actual combine. We're not talking, juiced up pro day numbers. We're talking legit combine stuff. And for someone with that size as well, a 4.3840 is, absolutely ridiculous. I think that was like a 94th percentile speed score or something like that. So, like I said, I think Davis is going to be more of the possession, chain moving kind of receiver, and Mims is going to be that home run threat. But he can also operate in that short to intermediate range as well. And then if you look at their quarterback situation, obviously they traded Darnold away. Right now, all signs are pointing to Zach Wilson being the pick at 2 there for the Jets. And if you look at Wilson last year in his breakout year with BYU, he completed nearly 67% of his passes 10 or more yards down the field, and actually had his highest passer rating on throws that were 20-plus yards down the field at 131. So, no matter who they bring in, whether, if something crazy happens and they go Fields at 2 or something, like, I really don't think it's going to matter. But it's looking like it's going to be Zach Wilson. He's going to be an upgrade at that position. And I think with, bringing in LaFleur as well will be a nice pairing for that offense as a whole. So Denzel Mims, year 2 breakout.
Yeah, I love that. As we know, this is a Denzel Mims friendly podcast, and I think the sky is kind of the limit for him right now. I think that I know people are going to look at him and not be in love with this offense. They do still have some work to do. They definitely need a running back. They definitely need help along the offensive line. Zach Wilson probably, take a little time to develop, but I think Denzel Mims was misused last year. I remember so many times last year just waiting for him to kind of fully break out, and he would get a few targets here, and there was just never any consistency with him. And he didn't get to play a full 16 either. He only played 9 games. So I do like Denzel Mims, and I think this guy is very high for him and somebody that I think is a great value. Probably later in drafts, you could probably get him 12th, 13th, 14th round. So for me, my next guy is going to be Michael Pittman. Let's just keep it going. I guess you're right. We should have just called this the second year breakout. But, as we know, Michael Pittman coming into year 2, this offense is completely different now with Carson Wentz that they went out and traded for over the offseason. But they did bring back T.Y. Hilton. I was a little upset about that. But I think that, honestly, right now, I think all signs point to Michael Pittman being the number 1 wide receiver in this offense because, I don't think you can expect that anymore from T.Y. Hilton. We love Paris Campbell, but we've loved Paris Campbell forever now. He feels like the Eric Ebron of this generation because that's how it was. Eric Ebron, he's at the Lions. Like every year, it was like, you wait, man, this is the year Eric Ebron's breaking out this year. I remember talking about him all the time, but we'll see if that ever happens for Paris Campbell. But Michael Pittman has the makings to be an absolute monster in this offense. So 13 games last year, only played 80% of the snaps, 13% target share, 40 receptions, 503 yards, only 1 touchdown. He only got 16.5% market share of the air yards, which was not good. 7.6 fantasy points per game, 290 yards after contact, though, after the catch, which was 32nd among all wide receivers, 1.43 yards per route run, 8.6 yards per target, 1.65 fantasy points per target. There's a lot to like here with Michael Pittman, big, physical. I think that he, like I said, is going to be the number 1 target for Carson Wentz. They don't really have a tight end. Would I be surprised if they added another wide receiver in this draft? No, I wouldn't, because I don't think they can feel confident with a guy like T.Y. Hilton long term and adding another wide receiver. And I don't know how they feel about somebody like Paris Campbell, who we like and I think has a lot of upside, but if he can never stay on the field, so we'll see here. But I think Michael Pittman, especially at his ADP, I think is another guy that I think that has, for me, I think could easily be a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 this year.
Yeah, 100%. And like we were mentioning with a lot of these rookies, just another year to acclimate. After having that weird COVID off season that we had last year, I think will be huge for these guys. And apparently they're already working together. The pass catchers and Wentz. So something you expect, but obviously that you like seeing this early on in the process, especially after Pittman would not give up his number 11 to Carson Wentz whenever he came in. So if you're looking for one of those narratives, there's one for you. Finally, I'm going to be touching on the last guy that I'm going to kind of go into depth here, a year 3 guy. Finally, so shaking things up here a little bit, and we are talking Big Irv Smith. With Rudolph finally out of the way, Irv is going to be able to finally, he's going to be free to spread his wings. Kev, like you like to say, it's time to let Irv swerve. And if we look at Smith's splits with and without Rudolph, so in 25 career games with Rudolph active, Smith is only averaging 5 PPR points per game. But in the 4 games without Rudolph in the lineup, we saw a couple of these last year whenever Rudolph was out, that goes all the way up to 13 points per game. And even with him, in those 4 games, he's really only averaged 45 yards. But if you extrapolate that out to a 16-game season, and I normally don't like doing this, but just to kind of give you guys an idea, because like 45 yards per game doesn't sound like a lot. But one, the bar for, a tight end 1 is low to begin with. But 2, just to kind of, like I said, to give you an idea of like what that might look like, he goes all the way up to 720 yards over a 16-game season. I know we're playing 17, but those 700 yards would be more than his first 2 seasons combined. And just to throw out another reference point, last year Hayden Hurst was a tight end 1, and he only had 571 yards. So even if he's not averaging 45 per game over that entire duration of the season, he could still very, very easily end up with a tight end one season. He's going pretty late in drafts as well. It's kind of like with Rudolph moving on, it's like we forgot about that news. It's become like old news, so he's getting buried. But he was another guy. Whenever he came out, was an athletic tight end. It's obviously something we're looking for. Ran a 4.63 40 at the combine, 6'2", 242 pounds, and that 4.63 40 would have been an 87th percentile 40. So I really like Irv Smith as a late round tight end for you to target if you're not going to go after basically Waller, Kelsey, Kittle. And you know, I mean, like that's after that kind of tier, I'm probably going to be punting and looking at some of these later guys. And Irv Smith is going to be my main target as far as that goes.
Yeah, let Irv swerve, baby. Let him swerve. I'm all about Irv Smith life. Okay, I'm all about that. Love some Irv Smith. Finally, Kyle Rudolph is gone. Hopefully now we can just get rid of Mike Zimmer and maybe just air it out a little bit more with Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins and company. So, but no, I love that pick. And we'll be talking about another tight end here in a little bit that I like as well. But let's just jump on to the next one. Let's talk about Laviska Shenault. I really thought about going with DJ Chark, especially after the down year he had last year. But as we know, it's not a secret that they're going to be taking Trevor Lawrence next week in the NFL draft. Massive upgrade over what they had last year with the quarterbacks they had there now. But listen, Laviska Shenault's an absolute weapon, what they can do in the backfield or what he can do here. He only played 66% of the snaps, 15% target share. He had 58 receptions, 600 yards, and 5 touchdowns, 518 total air yards. Averaged about 11.2 fantasy points per game, but the dude's an absolute weapon. You can put him all over the field. You want to line him up on the outside. You can put him in the backfield, have him do some things there. So I love Laviska Shenault, and I think this is a big time breakout year for him. I think this offense takes a big step forward this year. The defense is still really bad. There's not much you're going to be able to do to fix that. So this is the team that's going to have to throw the ball a ton. They have an above average offensive line. It's better than what I think people think they give it credit for. But I do like this offense in the direction that they're heading with this team. They have 2 first-round picks, and I would expect with that second one, they are going to use that on probably defense. But we'll see here. But I don't anticipate them investing a ton offensively. James Robinson coming back. So I like that as well. So Laviska Shenault is another guy that I'm going to be targeting heavily. Between him, I'm going to have a lot of him, and I'm probably going to have a lot of DJ Chark as well, because I think both of them can bounce back big time.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Urban Meyer coming there, think about what he has done with guys like Percy Harvin and Curtis Samuel. Whenever he was at Florida and Ohio State, and now you're taking someone who can do some of those similar things in terms of taking handoffs out of the backfield and being able to be utilized as a receiver. Except you're adding 30, 35 pounds onto that frame. So like I really hope that Shenault can stay healthy, and that he does get that Curtis Samuel, Percy Harvin treatment where he's being used in those different ways, because he can absolutely do it. If you go back and watch his college film, I mean, you're talking about wildcat, tight end, offset in the in the backfield. He did a lot in that offense. So that's I'm really looking forward to seeing what Urban does with him. And huge shout out to our man Walito hitting us with that $10 super chat. We appreciate you, man. We appreciate everyone who's rocking with us live right now. We are live on YouTube if you're catching this on podcast form. Walito brought up somebody, we can throw this in right now. He said Noah freaking Fant. And I like that call as well. I would like to. I don't think that Locke is as bad as what we have seen. And I think, going in, I think it's the first year since he's been in the NFL that he has 2 years in a row with the same coordinator, in the same offense, and then you have Cortland Sutton coming back healthy, obviously Judy, Hamler, like they're set up really well. So I do like the Fant call. I just hope that he gets the, not that even with the tight end position, you need a lot of volume, but I'm hoping he gets enough that we can see his full potential in that offense.
No, for sure. I mean, I like Noah Fant quite a bit, right? And I think he's somebody that could easily be talked about in this list as well. But I think there's a really good chance that the Broncos trade up here and grab a quarterback. If I think if Trey Lance doesn't go to at 4 to Atlanta, because I think Atlanta has to be going back and forth about adding a quarterback.
Yeah.
Trey Lance would be perfect. You could let him sit for a year behind Matt Ryan and learn this offense from Arthur Smith. But if they don't, I think you see Denver trade up and grab one of these guys if Trey Lance or if Mac Jones were to fall. I could definitely see John Elway getting aggressive here in this in this regime, and I just don't think they're sold on Drew Lock. Like pretty much everything we've heard, they've been tied to a lot of these quarterbacks that were Deshaun Watson and all that kind of stuff. So I just don't think they're sold. And I think there's a really really good chance the Broncos trade up from 9 to get their quarterback. Which if that happens, oh my, because this offense is really really ready to go.
Pieces.
And if Justin Fields falls and they could get him, I am a Chiefs fan and I hate the Broncos, but from a fantasy perspective, I would absolutely love it because that would be amazing. Justin Fields with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, this offense would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be really any quarterback if they trade up. If you guys want to get a sense of what that could potentially look like, we did do a round 1 NFL mock a couple weeks back. You can go back and check that out on the channel. We actually we did that. Actually, I was controlling the Falcons. You were controlling the Broncos, and we made that trade from 9 to 4. So that's definitely something that's in the cards. And man, I'm so excited. I'm just so excited for this draft. Like you said, Atlanta has. Anyway, we can't go off on that tangent. Before we finish out here with some honorable mentions as far as breakout candidates go, we do have a question here from Silver Rapture. We appreciate you jumping in here with us. Who would you take at 3 between Kamara, Barkley, and Henry?
It's either Kamara or Barkley, and it's really close for me for both of these guys. I know a lot of people are going to be down on Alvin Kamara because Drew Brees is gone. I'm not worried about whether it's Taysom Hill or Jameis. I don't really care. Kamara is still going to get his. Some of the numbers people look at whenever Taysom Hill started last year for Drew Brees, they kind of handled most of those games. But in the one game that they really had to open up the offense, Kamara was very much involved. So I'm not really worried about that. And people are writing Kamara off for dead, or not for dead, but lower on him than what they should be. And if it's Jameis, please just give us Jameis. That's what I want. Because that offense is going to be so much fun with Jameis and that offense with Sean Payton. So I would probably go. I would go Saquon. And mainly, I know that's going to be hot because some people are. There's 2 rules of thought here with Saquon. Either people are excited about him and think that he can bounce back, or people think that he's injury prone, right? I've seen a lot of he's injury prone. He's always hurt, it's just not really true. He got hurt last year. He got knocked out. True. The year before that, he missed, I think, 3 or 4 games to do a high ankle sprain, but he was still fine. The year before, obviously, was his rookie year, which he crushed. I think there's still a really, really, really high ceiling for him. I hope the Giants do the right thing and draft an offensive lineman with their first pick, because that's what they need. If Rashawn Slater falls or something like that in this offense, they desperately, desperately need another offensive lineman to protect Daniel Jones. We know Daniel Jones has some turnover problems. And so really protecting him, I think, will go a long way for this offense. They brought in Kenny Golladay, which is a massive upgrade. Now you can move Sterling Shepard into the slot. You have Darius Slayton as the number 2, which is, I think, where he belongs. And so if they can get an offensive line and really build this offensive line up, I think Daniel Jones could be a nice little post hype, and I do think Saquon could bounce back in a big way. Somebody that you can get and really look at 80 to 90 targets. I know people love Derrick Henry. I know we've had some people in our comment section that haven't appreciated our not love for Derrick Henry. That's fine. I don't really care if people are upset about that, but I can't take a running back that early who has no pass catching upside. I just can't take a running back in the top 3 picks that have 0 pass catching upside.
Yeah, I really don't have anything else to add to that. I think you broke that down really well. Really, the answer is not Derrick Henry. Come at me. throw more hate in the comments. I don't care. It's just not Henry. I would lean Barkley as of now. Like I do think that they go offensive lineman with that pick. I've seen people talk about them doubling down at wide receiver, and like I don't see that. I just do not see that, especially after going out and getting Galladay. If they didn't get Galladay and like Devonta Smith is sitting there, fine. But like you said, I think their receiver core as is set up nicely. With as deep as this class is, you can still get your depth later on. Late day 2, even day 3, with with how good some of these receivers are. So I don't see that. I think it's I definitely think that is a feather in the cap for Barkley there as well.
See, I I don't really agree with the Henry is safe, because I think he is very, very volatile in terms of what his ceiling is, right? Because like if you look at it last year for him, he rushed for 2,000 yards and had 19 touchdowns, and he still wasn't the RB1. He wasn't even the RB2. He was the RB3 last year, and he had a historically good season, historically good, and he still wasn't the RB1. He's not going to rush for 2,000 yards this year. Okay. And so if that doesn't happen, and if he falls out, he could still have a great year and rush for 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's still a really good season. But if he does that without any pass catching upside, he's going to finish as like RB10, RB11, RB12, somewhere in that range. And that's not going to cut it for an RB3. And so it's something you're taking with third off the board. And so that's my problem with Derrick Henry going in the top 3 picks, is because there's no way he's going to pay off that ceiling. He has to have another historic season for him to even pay that off. And it's just not going to happen. And so that's why, for me, for Derrick Henry, I like Derrick Henry, the player. The dude's an absolute monster. But if they're never going to use him as a pass catcher, and he's 27 years old, they're not all of a sudden going to feed him 50 targets, 60 targets, 70 targets. This is not going to happen. And so as much as I like Derrick Henry, the player, for fantasy, I can't take him at 3rd overall.
No, I can't. I can't either, for everything you outlined. So we don't even have to dive into that any further. Also, another question from Rapture has 18 and 23 after 3. Looking at Jefferson, AJ Brown, Waller, Keenan, Gibson, Dobbins. What 2 do you like there at 18 and 23? For me, Jefferson for sure. If he makes it to 18, I would like Jefferson there. Even AJ Brown, I've been kind of a little lower on him, but I think if you can get either, I would definitely go one of those 2 receivers. Keenan, I'm going to be interested to see what the Chargers do. They seem kind of not necessarily set, but if that defense can be healthy, which I feel like we say every year for the past 5 years, I don't think they necessarily go defense. I think they could be one of these teams that adds an offensive piece in the first 2 rounds. Keenan, I wouldn't go there that early. So for me, it's going to be one of those 2 receivers. And then I love Antonio Gibson. We were trying to bring some different names here for the breakouts, but guys like Gibson, Cam Akers are, definitely atop that list as well. So I would go either of those 2 receivers I really like. And then Gibson, not Dobbins. That's another guy that we got hate for Dobbins as well. But when you're looking at the offense he resides in, with Lamar, they use 2 backs. He's not getting targets. So to me, like I said, one of those receivers, and then Gibson is the way that I would lean at 18 and 23.
Yeah, I mean, I love AJ Brown. I think AJ Brown gets absolutely peppered with targets, and he was so efficient last year on little targets compared to like the top guys. Like I think he could get 130, 140 targets this year. And I don't think his defense is going to be very good for the Titans. I think which is going to force them to throw the ball a little bit more. So, and right now, I mean, it's Josh Reynolds. I mean, they definitely could add another wide receiver in the draft, maybe like an Elijah Moore they could put out in the slot, which would be excellent as well. But if you wanted to go, because if you're able to get your running back, obviously with Saquon or Kamara at 3, whatever direction you decided to go, and then I don't hate going Jefferson and AJ Brown there if you wanted to, but it'd be hard for me to pass up on Gibson as well, because I think the only thing that worries me about him is I've seen some people mocking Travis Etienne, right? And I get it, right? It seems ridiculous. I get it. But some of the people that are doing it are you really, really accurate with their mocks every year? And so I don't know. Like I don't love it at all, right? But like, I would hate it actually for Antonio Gibson if that happened. Like, because
Yeah, absolutely.
it would just be pouring water on a boner. You know, like I love Antonio Gibson, the player, and so like it feels to me that like I would hate if they went Travis Etienne there. But
is that how you get rid of your boners? You just pour water on it? Is that how it happens?
bro, I could. Oh man, I have so many military stories.
I
But just really quickly, we had a
oh
guy
god.
who took one of the blue pills down in Mexico and like couldn't get it to go down, and so like he like sat under a water faucet with ice for like 2 hours. Okay, so that's anyways. Just keep going.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Pump Fakes has a question here. Draft no Niners running backs with the signing of Gallman. For me, they're going to go late enough that like it's not really going to matter. Like I think you could still take Raheem Mostert. You know what I mean? I think he has like an ADP in like the 70s right now. Like that's not going to go up. Would I be spending, top 5-6 rounds on a Niners back? No, but if you're getting somebody like Gallman, Wilson, any of those three, honestly, if you're getting any of them, is your RB 4, 5, whatever. Like I'm completely fine with that. So definitely not going to be targeting one of those guys, but I don't think that they're full fades either because I see all their ADPs being very reasonable by the time drafts roll around.
All I'm going to say about that is just take the cheapest one. It's like the Patriots backfield, right? Just always take the cheapest one. Whichever one has the lowest ADP, draft that guy.
Yeah. Yes, Rapture. We're absolutely on the same page here with Jones, Taylor, and Elliott more than Henry. Our guy Matt chiming in. Henry top 5 for sure.
People probably are going to. Probably. So we'll definitely be in a couple of weeks. We'll be posting our. We'll record some videos for our updated rankings post draft. Now we'll have all the rookies and everything in there. And I had Derrick Henry, I think at 5, and you had him at 9, 8 or 9. There's a pretty good chance that Derrick Henry's going to move further down my rankings.
Let's go. Pump Fakes, why are we high on Justin Jefferson? Dude just absolutely balled out last year. We have Jabba Dabba in here backing us up. For Jefferson, for me, you have a fading Adam Thielen and then not much behind that. I mean, obviously Dalvin can catch passes. We just talked about Irv Smith as a breakout, but it's going to be the Justin Jefferson show. And as much as Zimmer doesn't want to throw the ball, he is going to be the number one target in that offense. So, and with his big play ability, he already showed the ability, he was typecast as the slot guy coming in. He showed he can excel on the outside, really good route runner going into his second year. I'm all about that Justin Jefferson life after, not that I necessarily faded him, but I put too much stock in the landing spot for year one. I had him behind guys like, Reagor, Judy, Lamb, all those, which I don't think is necessarily egregious to have him behind those guys. But he proved me wrong and proved that the landing spot thing is a little, maybe a little too looked into and a little too heavily weighted for rookies. So with him, that's someone that that we both like. Walito, listen, I'm gonna keep saying this. Tyler Boyd was a wide receiver 1 up until the point that Burrow got injured. I'm going to hold on to that. I am never letting go. He was a wide receiver 1 up and like all the way through week 11. All right. So I'm going to hold on to that. And you know what? I probably will have Joe Mixon in the top 7. So you can suck an egg, Walito. This is going to be the year. I'm going to keep saying it until either Mixon is out of the league or it happens. Mixon time is coming. It's a matter of when, not if.
As long as they do the right thing and draft Penei Sewell at 5 and not a wide receiver.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's we did skip one from Pump Fakes. I think we found Keenan Allen's burner account just in here hyping up Keenan Allen all over the place. But in a PPR league, what round would you be looking at Keenan in a 10-team league.
Third or fourth round, somewhere around there. I mean, PPR. I mean, he's an excellent PPR guy, right? He always has been. There for a while, it was he's injury prone. He's injury prone until he wasn't. Yeah, I mean, he had just freak injury every year, but yeah, I mean, he is just as reliable as they come. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to have like these huge monster ceiling weeks, but he's always going to be Mr. Reliable for you. So year 2 of this offense with Justin Herbert, especially if they don't go out and really add another wide receiver, because what have they really added? I mean, Mike Williams is in the last year of his deal. I expect them to probably add a wide receiver. I was hoping they would take Kyle Pitts, but I don't think Kyle Pitts is going to be around whenever they're picking. Okay, that's a little aggressive. Okay, that's the best pass catcher, route runner in the game. No, I would disagree with that. But he's really good
there. Yeah,
he's definitely not the best, but he's certainly top 10 to 15 for sure, 100%.
The issue with Keenan Allen is you only get those ceiling games when he gets 17, 18 targets. I mean, like you just cannot book. You can't count on that week in, week out. Like he can have those ceiling games, but he's not doing it whenever he's only getting 7, 8 targets, just because of where he operates in the field. And that's not a bad thing. I just wouldn't be taking him. I wouldn't be taking him. We were talking about 18 and 23 for some of those picks. I just wouldn't be taking him at the end of the second. If you get Keenan as your wide receiver 2 or 3, wide receiver 3, especially like in the 4th round or something like that, I'm all about that, but I just wouldn't be able to take him, even at 23. Yeah, pump fakes. We touched on Saquon a little bit. We had the question earlier about would you take Saquon, Kamara, or Derrick Henry at 3. We both picked Saquon and kind of touched on that, especially if they add the offensive lineman. Big bounce back year for Saquon coming off that injury. And then same thing with Zeke as well. Whenever he was healthy, he was still at top 5, top 6 back. Maybe Pollard works in a little bit more with Zeke kind of getting up there in some of those touches, but especially in dynasty leagues, Zeke is just getting absolutely shat upon. So if you're in a dynasty league and you're a contender, you can go out there and get him cheap for your championship run. That's definitely something I am absolutely interested in. And right now in Best Ball 10 ADP, Zeke is going at RB7 with an ADP of 9.2. So I mean he's finally starting to climb back up. But for a while there earlier on, I think he was closer to RB9, RB10 than he was in the middle of the pecking order.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything you said about him. I think he definitely bounces back this year. I think he's somebody that, listen, I like Tony Pollard, and I think that after this year, if you're the Cowboys, you look to possibly move on from Zeke because of that contract and getting up there in age and everything else. And you have Tony Pollard who, short sample size, provided and proved that what he can do. And so, I don't think he's going to be getting 400 touches this year with Tony Pollard on the roster. I think Tony Pollard gets a little bit more action and could actually be somebody who's actually a viable flex option on a lot of weeks, because I still think this Cowboy defense is going to be pretty much trash. I definitely expect them to probably take like a Patrick Surtain with their first pick, something like that in the first round. I know I've seen the rumors that old Jerry loves some Kyle Pitts, and I don't know how I'd feel about that. How would you feel about that if they took Kyle Pitts? Like, I love the offense, and I love Dak, and I love this, but man, like with all those wide receivers, like it would just be a kind of a buzzkill for Kyle Pitts, at least for year 1.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think he would be one of those, tight ends who would be volatile on a week-to-week basis, because like normally we don't like really subscribe to like the too many mouths to feed kind of thing. Like good players are going to get theirs. But when you're talking about Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, who quietly had, close to, I think, 1,000 yards last year. I think he had over 900. And, what was after Dak went down was a pretty awful offense. Then you talk about Zeke, Gallup. Like if Pitts gets inserted in there, you're definitely gonna have to choose your poison as a defense. But I just think that could be one of those things where, it's Pitts going off one week and then Cooper and then CD. Like I don't think we would be able to necessarily, if Pitts were to land somewhere a little friendlier, like Atlanta potentially at 4, if they don't trade down with Julio kind of on the back end of his career. That's kind of where I lean with that. A couple more questions to get to. Can we elaborate on the second-year running backs that we like and don't like? So for me, like for both of us, I know both of us really like Dobbins, the player. We like him as a talent, athletically, all of that. But like we were just touching on a little bit, going to be splitting touches with Gus Edwards, going to be splitting carries with Lamar Jackson. And because Lamar Jackson is, prone to like taking off, he's not a check down, dump down kind of quarterback. So even though Dobbins is a really good pass catching running back, if he's not getting the targets, it doesn't matter. So we're a little bit lower on Dobbins. We love Swift. We love Taylor. We talked about Gibson a little bit in terms of a breakout, as long as they don't do something asinine like taking ETN in the first. What about you, Kev? Any other second-year running backs? Obviously, Akers is our dude. We love Akers here. And any other thoughts on those guys?
James Robinson. James Robinson always, it's like he doesn't exist, even though he had probably the best year of any rookie running back last year, at least from all year stands. They didn't really do anything to improve the running back room. And now I know people think they're going to take a running back. I don't think they're going to take a running back early. They're not going to take any of the top 3 guys. They're not going to draft Najee. They're not going to draft Javonte. Like that would be the worst for me if they drafted Javonte, because as much as I've tied my brand to James Robinson, but to have to see that. But I just don't think anything's going to change there. And so I think that James Robinson is probably locked in as being the starter next year. I know they've said that they want to draft someone else. I could see them taking a guy in the 4th round, somebody
right,
that spells him a little bit and stuff like that. But this running back class this year is just not that good. Like once you get past the top 3 guys, like I like Michael Carter, I like Kenny Gainwell, like I think there's some dudes there, but like there's just nobody that like really stands out to me that's like, oh man, if they take this guy here, like he's going to be dead. And so I like James Robinson a lot. I think James Robinson's being slept on because everybody's just waiting for somebody to for them to take the running back that's going to kill James Robinson because he's an undrafted free agent. We've already had this conversation. I'm not going to go super in depth with it, but I like James Robinson a lot. He's being drafted behind a lot of these guys. So, but Cam Akers is absolutely locked in to be. He's a pretty safe guy. I think that probably looks like a top 10 running back.
Keenan Allen over Michael Thomas. You're muted.
I think you could make that argument that he's better than. I mean, Michael Thomas has done it for a couple of years. Keenan Allen's been a baller for the last 5, 6, 7 seasons. So I mean, I would take Keenan Allen over Michael Thomas. No, that's Keenan Allen's not better than Tyreek Hill. Okay, like we can start there. Definitely 100% not better than Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is arguably the best wide receiver in the league at everything that he can do. Everything he brings to the table. But Keenan Allen is not the second best wide receiver in all of football. You're high, okay?
No, that was to Walito.
Yeah, I know that isn't even top 10. Yeah.
Where do you this is an interesting question. Where do you think MT ends up going in drafts this year?
Lower than he should. Just because that I think that right now, if you look at that New Orleans, and now New Orleans is another team that probably has to take a wide receiver this year because they didn't really do anything to address it. They had to shed a bunch of money to get under the salary cap. Michael Thomas is not a young wide receiver either. He's 28, I believe. Coming off probably one of his worst years he's ever had. And they lost Emmanuel Sanders. So right now they pretty much have him and Traquan, right? So it could be Traquan breakout year if they don't really add a major wide receiver, right? But they're an offense that's going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. And I think Michael Thomas could easily bounce back and be a guy who finishes as a top 3 to 5 fantasy wide receiver, but he's going to be drafted later than that.
He in best ball 10 ADP over the past 2 weeks, he is sitting at 26 overall with an ADP of 25.3.
Where's he at among all wide receivers?
Among wide receivers, wide receiver 9.
Okay, see that, and I think that's good. I think that's a pretty good value. I mean, he's somebody that, in years past we've been.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say he's actually going right ahead of Keenan Allen. Keenan is wide receiver 10 with an ADP of 29.5. Like I said, Michael Thomas is at 25.5 at wide receiver 9.
Yeah, I think this is a decent bounce back year for him.
I think Matt. I think Dobbins gets the majority of the touches, but Gus Edwards is absolutely going to be getting touches as well. I mean, I think Dobbins is probably in that like 15 per game, and Gus Edwards is probably going to get 6 to 8 somewhere around there. And I don't know off the top of my head, but it just feels like every time I was watching these games, so maybe it's just the games that I saw, but it seemed like unless Dobbins was scoring from 25 yards out and just making those long runs, which he's obviously capable of, and that's why we do like him, it seemed like Edwards was the guy that they were giving the ball to, like inside the 20 in the red zone, inside the 10. So that goes into us being a little bit lower on Dobbins as well. Like I said, put him in basically any other offense, and he would probably be, an RB1 for both of us, or at least on that fringe. But the offense that he resides in now, just with that going, with all that going on, he just slides down a little bit. And I think Gus Edwards is a really nice late round pick. If you're kind of, not wanting to wait to snag him off waivers, I think he's someone who I would definitely be stashing, just in case something happens to Dobbins, or if your running back core just gets absolutely decimated by injuries. That's someone who I would be looking at.
Well, I mean, this isn't like you kind of said, like this isn't that we hate J.K. Dobbins. Like I love J.K. Dobbins. Like he very well could be the second best running back in last year's class in terms of talent, right? Like I love J.K. Dobbins, the player, and the problem is much like you talked about, because if you look at them last year, I mean, he only got 48% of the snaps and 38% of the opportunities last year. Only 24 targets, which was terrible. And that was the crazy thing. I mean, now if that changes, and maybe they do, maybe they use him far more as a pass catcher, because last year they just didn't. And he only had 6 goal line carries, which is 28th. But you look at Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards had 34% of the snaps and 37% of the opportunities, 144 carries last year for Gus Edwards. And he actually had 8 goal line carries, which was, 2 more than what J.K. Dobbins got. So, like, Gus Edwards is going to be involved in this offense. And that's the scary thing with J.K. Dobbins. It's not J.K. Dobbins. It's just how they use him, Could it be something different? And maybe they do go all in with J.K. Dobbins? Yes. And so I think if it really is going to depend on, for me, with J.K. Dobbins, once we get closer to August, where his ADP stands and where people are taking him, because, if people are going to be taking him in the top 10, I just can't do that. That's just too high. Or, top 10 among all running backs. Like, I just can't do it. Like he's further down for me among the other, guys that are in that range.
Yep, absolutely. Got another super chat coming in here from Walito. Dude, you're the man. You make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Projections for Ridley and Julio. Walito's intrigued to know if Ridley finally takes over. He's also seen too many mocks sending Pitts to Atlanta. For me, this just all comes down to how many games does Julio play? How healthy is he? I think Ridley is legit. I think he could function as a team's wide receiver 1. Obviously, whenever you have Julio beside you, that makes life a lot easier. But we saw Ridley go out there and be the main target for a bunch of games last year, and he balled out. He did produce. Obviously, it was one of those down year, up and down years for Matt Ryan. But, as long as they can get back on track, and it kind of seems like they do this like every other year thing in Atlanta, where, Matt Ryan is either a top 5 quarterback, or he's barely a QB2. So it seems like if that trend continues, he's looking at a bounce back year this year. I think a lot of that too is going to depend on how much of the offensive philosophy that Arthur brings with him to Atlanta. Like, they're definitely going to be in the market for a running back. I can't imagine them just rocking with, Mike Davis as their RB1. I think they take one, definitely by the end of round 3. Their first 2 days, they're definitely taking a running back. But I do like Ridley, but for me, that all comes down to how many games do we see Julio play. And just out of curiosity, I pulled it up on Best Ball 10s, and Julio is wide receiver 17 currently with an ADP of 43. So you're looking at mid to late 4th for Julio.
Give me all of that.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
At that point, like I don't get it. I don't get the surmise of that people think that of Julio Jones. Like, I know that he was a little bit injury hurt last year. I think some of it had to do with the fact, especially late in the year, where they were at. I think had the Falcons been like in a playoff hunt, I think you probably see Julio Jones play more than what he did last year. He only played 9 games, but all of the advanced metrics still point to Julio Jones still being Julio Jones. And so I'm not really all that concerned with Julio Jones. I still think that he may not be elite top 3 wide receiver anymore, but he's still one of the best wide receivers in all of football. He's not dead. And if you're going to be able to get him in the 4th round, I'm about that life. And so, and we were really high on Calvin Ridley last year too, right? Like, There's still lots of like Calvin Ridley. Like this defense is still going to be hot garbage, and they're still going to have to throw the ball a ton. And Matt Ryan's definitely still going to be the starting quarterback, even if they take one this year. Matt Ryan's still going to be the guy. Matt Ryan threw for 4,500 yards last year, and so I don't see a lot of that changing. So I think both of them can be very productive. They don't have a wide receiver 3 really past them. Did they bring Laquan Treadwell back? Like maybe he could still be a thing, but.
Nope.
No, but I think both of them can eat. So I mean,
Yeah.
If you want to say Ridley takes over Julio, I guess, because I do think that they probably lower Julio's snap share a little bit. Last year he played 76% of the snaps. I think you probably see him coming somewhere around that. Use him a little bit more sparingly, using him in certain situations, but he's still going to get a lot of targets. And I think that he can be, again, a guy that you're going to be able to get at a pretty solid value. 4th round, Julio, I'm about that.
Real quick before we move on to the tight end question, at their draft cost, Calvin Ridley at wide receiver 5 with an ADP of 20.4. Or are you rocking with, if you were just for whatever reason, like you were only going to draft one of those guys, are you looking at Ridley at wide receiver 5, ADP of 20.5, or Julio, like I said, wide receiver 17 at 43?
I'd probably go Calvin. I mean, if I could take one of them, I mean, sure. I still think Calvin Ridley can be a top 5 wide receiver this year. So, and I think you probably feel a little bit safer. Julio has dealt with injuries and stuff like that, and so the possibility of him missing games is certainly there. I don't think you worry about that as much with Calvin Ridley. But some of that's baked in though with Julio Jones with getting him in the 4th round. So,
yeah, absolutely. What about Irv Smith or Logan Thomas?
Top 10, Logan Thomas. The TFA for the brand, Logan Thomas. Yeah, I mean, you have to go Logan Thomas. I just think he's much safer than Irv Smith. But Irv Smith's ceiling is high. It's just Mike Zimmer, the killer of boners, if you will. Running the 1990 offense that he likes to run with wanting to run the football 30 times a game. So.
And Logan Thomas is being drafted as a top 10 guy, tight end 9 right now, best ball 10s ADP of 99.6. And then Irv Smith, tight end 13 with an ADP of 117. So going, 20 picks later than Logan Thomas is.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about, actually, we can work this in. This is a good work-in spot for one of the other tight ends that we were going to talk about. We brought up earlier. For Adam Trautman. I like Adam Trautman a lot, and he is going very, very late. I think he's somebody that you can kind of look at in the same vein as you look at Irv Smith. Jared Cook is gone from this offense. We talked about the little pass catchers they have in New Orleans, and so I like Adam Troutman quite a bit. I think that his athletic profile is solid, and I think that he's certainly going to be the number one tight end in this offense, unless they do something ridiculous and take like a Pat Fryermuth or Hunter Long or something like that in the draft. I don't see why they would do that when they have Troutman. So Troutman's probably going to be the starting tight end for this offense, and he very well could be the number 2 guy in targets here. He's going to be somebody they're going to look for in the red zone. So, I think among all the pass catchers, I like Adam Troutman, and he's going ridiculously late. And you probably could get, even once we get to August, probably somebody you're going to be able to get 12th, 13th round.
Yeah, just pulled up his ADP, tight end 23, ADP of 170.4.
Yeah, I'm about that live.
Yeah, like you said, obviously, too, depending on what they end up doing in terms of their draft and, what kind of pass catchers they add or do not add or how early they end up doing it. I like Troutman. Beforehand, you told me that you were going to be adding a tight end to the list, and I had a sneaky feeling it was going to be Troutman. Or a little surprised you didn't talk about Dan Arnold.
Hey, Dan Arnold. Hey, if Dan Arnold doesn't go to the Panthers and he's the starting tight end for the Carolina Panthers, we're going to get Darnold to Arnold, and I am here for that.
Last question here.
TJ Hawk.
Draft cost relative. Still going Hawk.
Yeah, he's the only guy that got, right? I mean, who the fuck else do they have in Detroit? I mean, they have,
his draft cost really isn't that ridiculous either. I mean, he's tight end 5, but that has an ADP of 72.8. So it's not like you're spending, top 4, even top 5 round, not even top 6. You're looking at him and getting him in the 7th. So in a 12-man league. So I think, even with taking draft cost into account, it's Hawkinson for me as well.
Do you think because to me, I think the best thing the Lions can do is trade back. They need to acquire as many picks as they possibly can in that offense, because they don't have anything else right now. Their wide receiver room is Rashad Perriman, Tyrell Gazelle, Williams.
Haven't seen him, I feel like, for 3 years.
And Quintez Cephas.
Yeah. Walito, don't you put that evil on us.
Yeah, don't you do that. Why would you do that?
Why would you even say that? Why would you put that into the universe? Why? I don't think he gets past 6. I think he's a lock for the top 6 unless something goofy happens.
I could see Waddle. So I could see Jalen Waddle going before Jamar Chase. Ridiculous to me. I think that that's like Henry Ruggs going first overall last year, or not first overall, but the first wide receiver off the board. I think it's very similar to the same thing, and I think will end up being a mistake, because I think Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver in this class. But I mean, at least they have Jared Goff. Jared Goff has made Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp were fantasy relevant every year under Jared Goff. Like, I don't love Jared Goff, the player, at all, but I think that at least they have him there. It's not, so I think they, that Jamar Chase would probably get 150 targets year one. Cause who else the fuck are they going to throw the ball to? DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. That's about it.
Couple more tight end questions here. Ertz and Goddard. Do you have a feel or a read on that situation? Obviously, Ertz is being talked about, following Wentz to Indy, but nothing has happened. It seems like that is quieted down. I would love for that to happen, because I would love for Goddard to be the unquestioned tight end 1 and just to get all of that tight end volume in that offense. But it as of right now anyway, seems like Ertz is going to be sticking around. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up moving before the season starts. But if he doesn't, how would you handle that situation if Ertz stays with Philly?
I think Zach Ertz probably gets moved. I think it's a pretty good shot that he gets traded. They're another team that could use all the draft capital they get. They did move back and picked up more draft picks, but this is a team with a lot of holes, and so really wouldn't be surprised about that. So I think it's wheels up for Dallas Goedert this year without Zach Ertz. Even if Zach Ertz is there, I still think Dallas Goedert's going to be the guy who gets, who is now the tight end one of this offense.
This has turned into the tight end hour. Pump Fakes is saying Waller before Kelsey. Just to give you their draft costs currently, Kelsey is obviously tight end 1 with an ADP of 8.15, and then Waller is following 17 picks later, tight end 3 with an ADP of 25. Are you being the KC homer, would you ever pull the trigger on Kelsey round 1?
And best ball, yeah, for sure. I mean, what he gives you in terms of positional scarcity and everything else, like, yeah. I mean, I'm not. If Kelsey's on the board, I'm not taking Waller over Travis Kelce. That's just not ever going to happen. But yeah, I don't have any problem with taking him there. I mean, he puts up wide receiver 1 numbers. He puts up top 3 wide receiver numbers. It's not going to change. I don't care if they draft somebody with the first overall pick. Like, he's still going to be the guy who's going to see a ton of targets. So,
nobody can guard Kelsey either. Pump Fake. So that's not really a feather in that cap. Just wait until Bryan Edwards bursts on the scene. He's healthy all year.
Waller, like, listen, again, another guy I love, Darren Waller, awesome. You know, especially 2 years ago, he was the guy that we were super, super high on, telling everybody to draft, right? Like, he is definitely a physical freak, but he's also the only guy in town. Like, he's the only guy there that gets all the targets. If they could ever find another wide receiver and actually somebody
Bryan Edwards
could be, but if they do something and they grab another wide receiver, it's going to hurt Darren Waller. Travis Kelce is not going anywhere. Travis Kelce is still the number 1 guy with Tyreek Hill there. And, so Travis Kelce, he's still the tight end 1.
I mean, if we're having a vertical competition, maybe not. But, I mean, we're not getting points per vertical out here, Matt. Another question here, another comment here from Matt, and we'll start to wrap this up. This has been awesome. I really missed all this interaction with you guys, just coming in here and just dominating the chat. This is something that I have longed for. Seeing guys like Matt, Walito, Pump Fakes, and Rapture in here just carrying the YouTube chat. We appreciate you guys. Hit us with a thumbs up and a subscribe if you'd be so kind to do so. But Matt wants to know Chark or Chenault. I know you're a big DJ Chark fan. You said you almost mentioned him as a breakout here. Obviously, you did talk about Laviska Chenault. Again, just for some reference, Chark, wide receiver 29, 65.4 ADP, and Laviska, wide receiver 41, with an ADP of 87.7.
I mean, if you're factoring in ADP, I would probably, I'd probably go Chenault just because of how much cheaper he is to DJ Chark. But I think big things are coming for DJ Chark this year. I think that he was crushed last year by the lack of quarterback play. And so, again, I like both of these wide receivers because you can get them cheaper than what they probably should be because it's the Jaguars. Nobody wants to mess around with the Jaguars. So I would probably just take the cheaper guy in Chenault, but if DJ Chark continues to be undervalued, I will be all about that as well.
Yeah, same way that I lean. John Brown as a Raider. Hey, if Carr can keep hitting those deep passes, I completely agree with you, Rapture. Similar in terms of how they're going to be used in that offense, and as long as John Brown can stay healthy, he definitely is the better all-around receiver versus Nelson Aguilar. So I like it. I think he's going to be undervalued. And like I said, if Derek Carr can do what he did last year and John Brown can stay healthy, I like him as a late-round dart throw for someone, if you're sitting, going into Sunday night and you're down big and you kind of need a a prayer and a Hail Mary. I like that a lot.
I think he's much more of a best ball guy. Somebody that, because I don't know if you're ever going to know when to ever play him in terms of like season long, but in best ball, yeah, I think he's a good best ball pick, which is crazy, right? Because they drafted a wide receiver last year with relatively high draft capital, who's a speedster and all this other stuff, and I guess they should have went Jerry Jeudy, which would have fit so much better, or CeeDee Lamb. You could have went either one of those, but we went with Henry Ruggs or Jalen Waddle. I mean, they're the same guy.
Yeah, as much as we, kind of shat on Ruggs in terms of people trying to pump him up as the wide receiver one in that class last year, he just wasn't used correctly. Like, he was not used in the way that he should have been used in that offense. So I think it's too early to say whether or not he was a bust. But if that's how they're going to continue to use him, that is just absolutely, malpractice on Gruden's part. Because, like I said, I wasn't a big Ruggs guy, but I don't think we can take anything away from him his rookie season because he just was not used the way he should have been used in that offense.
No, but I don't think it's going to change either. I don't think something's all of a sudden going to happen. So.
William wants to know who's going to be the Trent Richardson, or he means Jonathan Taylor, this year.
Hey, I stand by my takes, okay? Stand by them. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I don't think I'll have any Jonathan Taylor this year because I think he's going probably a little bit too high. He's gonna end up going too high. He's gonna end up going top 5. I guarantee it. And I just can't do it. I do think Marlon Mack matters. I know people are gonna look at it like, I don't care about Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack is gonna get touches. Okay, he's gonna get touches, and so is Nyheim Hines.
I'm much more worried about Nyheim Hines than I am Achilles tear Marlon Mack.
It isn't, but he's still going to get opportunities. He's still going to get touched. They didn't bring him back to still chill on the bench and never use him. So we'll I just think that his ceiling is a little capped because of all the running backs they have.
Yeah, Rapture. That's a good. Good way to go about your drafts with how deep wide receiver is. Like, you can wait until 4th round to pick these kind of guys, and you can still end up with a receiving core that looks like that. I think that's another viable draft strategy this year as well. Just to go, 2 running backs and potentially a tight end in your first 3 picks, depending on who's sitting there, and just slam wide receiver after that.
And it feels even deeper this year with running back, at least right now it does, because we haven't even factored in Najee and Javonte and Etienne into the mix of adding those guys in to go along with all the the running backs we had last year. And so running back does feel a little bit deeper, but there's a certain point, you get to that point of that drop off, and that drop off feels pretty steep, and you're like, okay, like there's nothing left. So you want to, at least within your first 4 picks, probably try to come away with 2 running backs if you can.
Yep. Pump fakes just coming in strong on the Keenan Allen and Marlon Mack talk here. A league winner, prime Marlon Mack would be the best running back. Pump fakes. Listen, I hope you're actually throwing some pump fakes our way, because that listen, boss, that ain't it.
I'll never understand either why they never use Marlon Mack as a pass catcher. Like, coming out of college, I was like, man, like, he is electric in space and everything else, and a great pass catcher, and they've never used him that way.
Yeah, it was really weird because every week we would talk about, like, hey, he's running the routes, just never got targeted. So it was that was odd to see. Was odd to see him used in such a manner. Brent Plays Madden coming in late here, longtime subscriber to the channel. Appreciate all you guys, man. This was a lot of fun tonight. Kev, were there any other names you just want to throw a quick rapid fire here at the end for some breakouts as we wrap things up? I don't have any other ones. I do think if Chase Edmonds survives the draft, he could be a guy to look into. I know he's going to get pushed down with the signing of James Conner. I don't really think that I think that's a win for Edmonds. So I think if he can survive the draft and they don't spend, day 2 capital on a running back, I do like Edmonds, but I really don't have anything else to add in here. So who you got?
Yeah, I'm just going to finish up with the quarterback, Baker Mayfield, right? Going, kind of that late round quarterback that you can take. Really started to really come on the second half of last year. Kind of went into that playoff run as well. Did so without Odell Beckham in this offense. And, he was pretty solid last year. 3,500 yards, 26 passing touchdowns. He was 14th in deep ball attempts, top 10 and deep ball completion percentage. Or 6th in deep ball completion percentage, 15.6 fantasy points per game. Not great. But, if you look over the final, from week 12 on, he scored 18.4, 28.5, 29, 21, and 16.2. Over that stretch, he had that terrible game against the Jets, where he only had 8. But listen, the only thing I hate about Baker Mayfield, he doesn't really offer a whole lot in terms of his running ability. I think he had 164 total rushing yards last year. I'm much more of a guy that give me a guy that can, has that upside in terms of using his legs. But, a guy like it would be like Jalen Hurts, right? But Jalen Hurts is going to get pushed into the top. He's going to be a top 9 to 10 fantasy quarterback drafted this year. The hype train's going to get going on him. And so unfortunately, he's not really going to be a late round guy that you're going to be able to rely on. But I do kind of like Baker Mayfield. Odell will be back. Jarvis Landry. I 100% believe that they're probably going to take a wide receiver. This team is so stacked with the Cleveland Browns that I think they could go best player available at 26 whenever they pick. And I wouldn't be surprised if they took a Terrace Marshall, or they took or waited until the second round and took Elijah Moore to go into the slot, something like that, because both Odell and Jarvis Landry are both turned 29 years old this year. They're not young. I do think Donovan Peoples-Jones is kind of an interesting guy, but they didn't have any draft capital on him. He was a 6th round pick, so flashed a little bit last year, but they definitely need to add another playmaker, I think, into this offense, especially with Odell Beckham continually getting hurt every year. So, I like Baker as kind of that late round guy that you can get, especially in a 2 quarterback league. But, if you're wanting to wait on a quarterback, I think Baker makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I like Baker there. And I think, I don't know if I would draft him as my QB1, but Tua, I think, has been kind of, thrown to the garbage pile a little too early. So I do like Tua to kind of to show more of what we kind of expected from him. Brent, we talked about Barkley already. We're both big fans. We think he's in for a bounce back year. We're definitely, taking him as a top 3, top 5 pick in redraft leagues. Rapture is Herbert worth pick 63. Kev, I'll give you that one.
I'm much more of that late round quarterback. I'm about that life. I don't hate it. I like Justin Herbert quite a bit, but I don't know if I would want to take him that high. I think there's a quarterback you can get a little bit later than that I would feel just as good about, if not better. Somebody like a Jalen Hurts is going later than that I think you could definitely look at. But I'm much more of that late round quarterback. Take a quarterback, past round 10, wait on the quarterback. Quarterback is so damn deep that I don't think you really need to go into that. So let's see. Burrow, Hurts, Wentz, Matt Ryan, or Stafford. Listen, I love Jalen Hurts this year, as long as he doesn't get outrageous and doesn't get too far up in terms of his ADP. But I fear that's what's going to happen. I think we end up seeing him go probably, in the top 8 rounds, which I think is a little bit, I don't think it's too high, because we saw what his rushing upside is in that offense with the Eagles. And I don't think that changes. He has such a tremendous floor because of it. But if he stays around 10, 11, around 10 or 11, I'm going to have a ton of Jalen Hurts, just because I think his upside is absolutely tremendous. And I think he's this year's Kyler Murray. The year before that's Lamar Jackson. I think he has that range of ceiling in him. I love Carson Wentz, who's a guy that you can get later in the draft. And then Stafford, also love him as well. I think Wentz and Stafford are also 2 really good late round picks in terms of quarterback. Is that where you have him?
For who? Sorry.
Well, who would you prefer here? Burrow, Hurts, Wentz, Matt Ryan, or Stafford? I said it would be Hurts definitely for me, as long as he doesn't get too far up. And then, past that, I think Wentz and Stafford are the guys that I'd like.
Yeah, I mean, with Burrow, we're still not entirely sure, how early he's going to be coming back. There was news that came out that he's actually targeting a week 1 return, and that his rehab is going really well. Out of this group, I think I would have Stafford ahead of Hurts. I think Hurts has the higher ceiling just because of his rushing ability. I think he's a capable passer. But out of this group, I think I would go Stafford, Hurts, Burrow, Ryan, and then Wentz, I think. Let me pull that up real quick for you. Eckler is going RB11 at 13.6 for Eckler.
Tell me you're a Chargers fan without telling me you're a Chargers fan. Oh, we hear it every year. Oh, here we go. Chargers are going to win the division this year. We've only heard that for 10 years in a row. 5 years. I mean, really solid 5 years in a row. Just hasn't happened. So, Andy Reid, the AFC West is still his bitch. So, until any of that changes, I don't see anything changing there.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Oh, he's a Texans fan. Well, so you're just picking a new team because the Texans are dead. So
yeah, maybe it's never too early nor too late to jump off that bandwagon. So that is going to wrap things up, man. We really appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun tonight, getting back in the seat with Kev, going live, and having you guys just light up the chat. And this if we were just to record this on our own, we would have been done an hour ago. But it is the getting to talk to all of you guys that makes this a lot of fun for us. So like I said, live draft show next week. Tom and I are going to be going live again on Saturday night. Going to be talking some NFL draft props for you guys to look at if those are available in your state. So like I said, appreciate all you guys. Check us out on Twitter. We're going to be upping our TikTok game a little bit. If you guys are on TikTok, head over there and hit us with a follow on there. And you can also get us on Instagram. If you guys ever have any questions, drop it here in the YouTube chat, or you can hit us up on any of those other platforms. So we'll talk to all you guys soon. Keep your eyes for some more content coming out. And that'll be it. Walito, you're the man. Bye.